Hello everyone, Grim here, and tonight I'm here to help you get some sleep with some terrifying, creepy encounters. So, to do me a favor before I start you on this journey of sleep, please select that like and subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and once that task is completed, lay your head down on either your pillow or couch, and let me help you get to sleep. My friend and I, both 13 at the time, took an evening stroll in a really dodgy part of town. Really idiotic, I know. This was pre-2015. It was January and pretty dark outside. No people were around except for 2 blocks down where there was a bus stop and a 7-Eleven. As we passed a newly built apartment complex, we started heading towards the bus stop. Before I understood what had happened, someone tripped over my leg, fell face down into the pavement, scratching himself and dropping something that rattled like plastic or metal on the asphalt. We both found ourselves staring at an adult man who started screaming obscenities, grasping the thing that fell out of his hands as he stood up and charged at us, telling us to get over to him. We immediately started running towards the apartment complex. The door was unlocked, thank God, and we rushed up the stairs and encountered a couple who were on their way out. We explained the situation to them and held back tears, but the man didn't follow us inside. The couple tried to calm us down and followed us outside. No man was anywhere to be seen. He just vanished. They were in a hurry and decided to leave us to get back home on our own. As we went towards the bus stop, really shaken up, we saw the same man enter the bus that was just about to leave. He looked really calm and put together, at least from the glance I got. His bus left and we got home some time after, not telling our parents about the situation because we were scared that they'd get mad that we decided to walk in that area of town alone. It's been 10 years since then, and we both discuss this regularly. And as we really had no idea what happened, the man seemingly appeared out of nowhere as we didn't hear him approach until he was about a few meters away. And there were no people around us to draw out the noise of him approaching. We don't know what he was holding in his hand, the thing he dropped. All we heard was the weird rattling sound and saw something silver looking. We wondered if it was a folding knife, but now the memory is so foggy and we really didn't get a good look at it. So we can't be sure as to what it was. Also, I cannot recall how I managed to trip him up either. At first, I thought I just accidentally made him fall as he started running towards the bus stop. But he came up behind me and the angle he came from the left, several meters free on either side, that he could have easily used it to get around us if he had to bolt for the bus. I guess we both just decided to leave it at that, thinking it was just an accident. But sadly, I still feel quite uncomfortable when I pass that particular part of town. Last night, around 9 p.m., my niece and I ran to the store about a mile away from our house to grab some trash bags and ice cream. There was about 7 or 8 cars in the parking lot in front of the grocery store. I used the side entrance to the parking lot, where it was a little bit darker and further away from the other cars. On the corner between the shopping centre and the street is a very small pond. As we're leaving, I pulled up to the stop sign, about to turn out of the parking lot and into the street. I stop. We both look over and see a man with light hair and a flannel standing next to and facing the pond, holding a shovel or rake, something with a very long handle, and aggressively pushing it at the ground where there was grass that goes down the edge of the water. Both of us are like, what the hell? And I see him turn quickly and look at us through the window. At this point, I still haven't processed what's happening as I'm focusing on driving, so I turn back, look at the road and pull away while saying, what the hell was he doing out here? Then my niece says that he's just run after our car. I look back and I don't see him, as I've already turned the corner around the trees and bushes. I'm like, girl, are you serious? I asked her if she was exaggerating, being paranoid, or if he actually came after my car. She said she was serious. He charged at my car, holding the shovel/rake thing. I was trying to process it and decided not to turn around and go back because we are 2 young women and I don't do stupid things like that. I drove home and told my parents, who suggested calling the police just in case he was up to no good. I called and quickly explained the situation, and the guy definitely did not take me seriously at all. He just asked if he could have been clearing the water so it could drain or something. I replied to him that if that was the case, he would have had a car or a truck with him, and it probably wouldn't be so late at night. I didn't see a vehicle nearby. He was just out there. So apparently he would send someone down to check if there was anything else that had happened and call us back. To be honest, I never heard back from him. Literally, that was it. I thought about it all night, and I'm still bothered by it. I work in the same shopping centre, so when I drove by today, I looked and didn't see anything. Not that I could see very well while moving at 10 miles per hour. Anyway, all I can think is what he was doing. The spot he was standing in is surrounded by bushes on all sides. It's not like he was on his own property. They would not have someone working on landscaping at 9 p.m. on an Easter Sunday either. Nor would they generally send them out in the rain alone and with no vehicle? Furthermore, if he was doing something shady, why in a public setting where people can see you? I guess I am still very confused as to what he was doing. Anyway, does anyone have any ideas? It's kind of driving me nuts. This happened to me about 15 years ago, when I was 13, and it still gives me the chills. I've followed this sub for a while from my main account, but I'm sharing this from a throwaway as I have a lot of personal details there. For context, I grew up on a cattle ranch in the middle of the Great Plains in the US. It's a very remote area, and our house was right in the middle of pastures where our cattle lived about 5 miles down a gravel road from a 2-lane blacktop. The closest neighbor was easily 2 miles away, and they were another rancher. The closest gas station is about 17 miles. In short, we were a long ways from anywhere, and it's a very independent lifestyle. The cattle get bought, sold in areas like that, and are transferred by semi-truck with those huge trailers. Some of you may have seen one. Many of the people in this business own their own trucks and operate them independently, picking up loads from buyers and sellers as jobs come mainly by word-of-mouth relationships. Background checks are pretty much non-existent, lots of under-the-table payments, and as such the community of drivers can be notoriously sketchy. Many are very good, just doing their job, but some are massive meth abusers, making them incredibly unpredictable. The meth abuse typically starts as a side effect of working very long hours and going on long hauls alone so very often. This story begins with my parents leaving for the weekend to take my little sister on a trip to Dallas. My dad had a load of cattle coming in from Nebraska scheduled to arrive around midnight, and this was the first time that I would be home alone to take the cattle in. The process is simple. They just back into a load chute and drop off the cattle while the receiver counts them and signs a slip confirming that they have arrived. So, in all, I wasn't very worried. I had been out around with my dad doing this many times, although in this case my father did give me some pretty good advice. He told me not to tell whoever showed up that I was there alone, which in this case I believed helped me out a lot later. Anyways, they leave for Dallas and I wait around until midnight, then start watching up towards the dirt road I know the guy was supposed to be coming in on, and I didn't end up getting a glimpse of his truck until about 1 a.m. when I saw the lights finally come off from the distance. It was rather odd though, as him coming down the road, he suddenly comes to a complete stop and just sits there for 30 minutes. All I can see is truck and trailer lights and no one comes out. But I figured it was him. When he finally starts moving again, I go to meet him at the loading chute to help him line up his trailer and back up. The guy steps out once he gets back, and he easily weighs about 300 pounds. He's one of the dirtiest people I'd ever seen. I don't think he ever changed his clothes, or at least it didn't look like he had in days. He had spilt food and drinks and cow crap all over him. He starts talking to me, telling me about how he's late because he's been sent in very random directions. Although, all in all, it kinda sounds like rambling nonsense, and I have no clue what he's trying to say exactly, but I had a feeling he may have been drunk and been having a hard time to keep his excuses together. He mentioned a flat tire and also running low on diesel, and something about animals on the road. It was rather odd. Eventually, he asked how old I was, and when I told him, he said, "Mighty young to be out here dealing with this shit. You need to be somewhere chasing girls." He then continued to ask if I liked girls or boys, saying something along the lines of it doesn't matter to him as he liked them both. This whole time I was thinking, what the hell? I told him with determination that I definitely liked women. Growing up around a lot of blue-collar guys, I wasn't a stranger to raunchy talk, but this was one of the craziest things anyone had ever really directed towards me. He then went on into an absolutely unhinged story about chasing pussy. When he was young back in Mississippi, and the gist of it was that he'd just been hooking up with a girl he met at a bowling alley for months at one point, until one day he went to his family reunion and there she was. Apparently it turned out they were second cousins or something, but that didn't bother them, he said, and they continued doing what they were doing for another year. I've hardly said anything at this point. He'd just been talking for 20 minutes. Once he gave me a gap, I mentioned that we should probably unload these, and said my mum was back at the house and was probably going to start wondering what was taking me so long. He grumbled a bit, while still making crazy sexual remarks and comments, then climbed into the loading, opening his cage and backing into the gate. These cattle trailers are huge and have a lot of different compartments inside them, pulling a few cattle at a time in bunches, then shutting them in compartments makes loading them easier. They are also safer on a journey because it prevents them from running all over each other. This truck had 60 to 70 pounds of cattle in there. He let off the first group, and I counted them, and then he got into the trailer and opened the next compartment and let out another bunch. For the third compartment, he was in there shaking the gate around and grumbling some sort of nonsense, and then he starts yelling out to me that he needs me to come in and help him. I was already very sketched out by being alone near this very perverted dude, but this threw my alarm bells off completely. Never have I once had any trucker ask me or seen anyone else be asked to go into a trailer with them, and this huge dude was clearly just trying to get me in a tight space. I told him I needed to stay outside to count. Then he shook it a bit more and tried to get me to come in there again, said he really needed a hand. I just told him that I'm not going in the trailer with him, and that he needs to figure it out. After a lot more back and forth, he finally opened the gate. Those remaining calf came off and had 2 compartments left. He tried the same routine with both of them. I just kept telling him, no man, but in all fairness, I was freaking out. By the time we had finally let all the cattle out, he was much less happy and started calling me an asshole for not helping him. He then tried to get me to jump into his truck and grab the papers that I needed to sign from his glove box, and I again had this asshole make me have to bicker with him about grabbing it himself. I was not going to turn my back to the guy. Eventually he caved and got the papers. I signed it and told him to head out, that I was going home. I ran back over to our house, which was like 100 yards away, and watched him from the front of the window sit there for an hour, as I didn't want to go to sleep until he left. He finally pulled off, and by the time I went to sleep it was around 4 a.m. What should have been a 20-minute interaction turned into a super creepy attempt of some sort of something horrendous, I'm sure. Either way, I'm just glad I never got in that dude's trailer. I'd like to take the time to talk about a kid whom I'll refer to as Cal. So, Cal in 6th grade had a crush on a girl whom I'll refer to as V. That sounds harmless at first, and it was, until one day when V and an acquaintance of mine, who I'll call Luke, were on a walk during recess. Luke and V were talking when Luke looked to his side and saw someone standing there with a blank expression on his face. It was Cal. Not hiding behind a tree or anything. Cal was just staring dead set at V, in particular out in the open. As you'd expect, this freaked out the 2 children, and Luke told Cal to go away, which he listened to. But even after it was made clear that V wasn't interested, since he quite literally just creepily watched her, Cal continued to pretty much stalk V for the entire school year. Thankfully, this behavior stopped in 7th grade, but the story, unfortunately, doesn't end there. In 7th grade, Cal was much more chill and kept to himself most of the time. He even showed me memes on his phone from time to time, ones from Discord servers of all places. The server was full of a lot of strange-looking accounts, and Cal got annoyed, almost mad when I asked about them. Since I was only around him when he showed me memes, I never really paid attention to what else he did. Now, he starts staring strangely at a friend of mine, whom I will call Gaia. Particularly at, let's just say, rather suggestive areas. When she was playing tag with some other students, Cal invited himself to join, but what he did made me sick. Cal is a pretty slow runner, but he somehow caught up to Gaia, and when he tagged her on one of her breasts. Although Gaia brushed it off as an accident, he did it in the same spot a second time. This time, it was crystal clear what his intentions were. It truly makes me sick that he saw her playing tag as an opportunity to literally harass her. Cal never got physical like that with V. However, I suspect that he hates Gaia. One day Gaia did something that made Cal really mad. I think she accidentally knocked his lunch off a table or something like that. At least that's what Gaia's told me. Temporarily, he told Gaia to go away whenever she got even remotely close to him. When she did, Cal started hissing at her, almost like a cat. It was really weird, but his behavior stopped in just a few weeks or so. Fortunately, all that he's done so far is what I've mentioned, and I still see him around, of course. Thankfully, he only hangs around in 3 places. These being a bench where he sits at recess, the table where he sits alone at lunch, and then he goes to the bathroom for up to 15 minutes. Now, I have no idea what he could possibly be doing in there for that long, and in all honesty, I don't think I want to know. All in all, I can't believe I used to hang out with this kid. It's truly disturbing that someone who seems so humble can be a completely different person without your knowledge. I'm just glad he now knows to keep to himself, and knows better than to show his face around me and my friends. This happened a few hours ago. I, 22 female, was walking back home from work, and this random guy who looked to be in his 30s was on his scooter and kept honking behind my back. The road was pretty empty, so I wondered what his deal was to honk at me. Though I didn't turn to look at him, I just kept walking. As he was passing by me, he slowed down and looked at me. He stopped honking and kept his vehicle moving, so I thought he mistook me for someone else and realized that I wasn't who he was looking for or something. Suddenly, this guy raised his left arm and gestured as if he was squeezing in the air, like he wanted to grab me, all while his vehicle was still moving. He was looking in the rearview mirror to see my reaction while doing it. I was expressionless because my brain was slowly registering what was happening. He honked again and did the same gesture, looking in the rearview mirror one more time before taking a left turn and disappearing. He wanted to make sure I saw it, and that's why he honked and slowed down. Honestly, what a creep. This happened a couple of months ago. I was at a friend's house one night and didn't realize how late it was. It's around 2 a.m. Now, I'm the type of person who likes to sleep in my own bed, so I decided to call an Uber home instead of staying over. My friend lives in a more rural area of town, so it took a while to get an Uber, and when it finally arrived, it was about a 40-minute drive back to my house. Upon getting into the Uber, the first comment he made was telling me how pretty I was. Immediately, red flags started going off in my head. I'm already a very anxious person and have always been afraid of taking Ubers alone, especially at night, so I was already on edge before the comment was made. I just replied, "Thank you," and he started to drive me home. My friend was a boy, and I assumed the Uber driver saw him standing in the doorway before we left because around 5 minutes into the drive, he asked if that was my boyfriend. At this point, my gut feeling tells me that there is something wrong, so I replied yes and said nothing further. He then proceeded to go on about how lucky my boyfriend was, and again how pretty I was. At this point, I didn't answer. Around 10 minutes into the drive, the Uber driver tells me he knows a quicker way to get to my house and that we're going to take a detour. I immediately start to panic inside because as an anxious Uber rider, I constantly watch the Uber app on the driver's phone and need to be following the map also. This detour seemed to be going deeper down the rural roads versus into the city. It was at this point I called my dad because it was past 3 a.m. He didn't answer the phone. I then decided to call 911. The operator answers me right away and I act like I'm talking to my dad on the phone. She immediately senses that I was unable to tell her the exact situation, but I acted like I was telling my dad that I was in an Uber and would be home soon. She then started to ask me questions about the color of the car by having me simply answer yes or no, the make and model, my location, etc. She then asked if I was in danger, and I said I don't know. After telling her my location, she then told me to tell the Uber driver to get on the highway because the detour he had taken consists of more rural roads. Thankfully, we were only 5 minutes off the highway, and then another 10 minutes to the police station. She told me to tell the Uber driver to drop me off at a house in the neighborhood close to the police station. She gave me an exact address and advised that an officer would be waiting there for me to take me home. After politely trying to beg the Uber to change the address, he finally did, and then continued to go in that direction. I stayed on the phone with the operator until I got to the destination. Sure enough, an officer was waiting a couple of houses down. I got out of the Uber and walked straight towards the car. I'm not sure if I was overreacting, but the situation, due to my anxiety especially, by calling 911. But the alarm bells were going off so loud in my head that I genuinely thought that I needed to get out of this situation. Now I only take Ubers alone in the daytime and will always share my ride with my parents or friends. Stay safe, everyone. Just a little interruption here, my lovelies. Grim here. Just so you know, yes, I am using random accents. I apologize. I am just a little bit bored while recording this. Not because the stories aren't interesting. I've just been recording all day and I'm trying to have a little bit of fun. If you don't like it, just let me know. And in the next one of these videos, I'll make sure to keep talking just normally. Anyway, on to the next story. Sorry that this is kinda long, but I had to explain the details. As I, 27 female, work remotely, I only go into the office once a month and take the train. In January, when I was going back home from the office, I was walking to the entrance of the train station along with many other people. As I'm generally more alert of my surroundings, I noticed the older man walking in front of me with glasses and holding a suitcase, looking like a working professional as well. As this is a newer station, once you enter it, you have to take the escalator down either 1 or 2 floors, depending on where you're going. I made the mistake by taking the escalator that goes straight down to the lowest floor, and should have taken the one that leads to the floor above. So I just waited to reach the platform to go take another escalator up a floor. While still going down, I turned around out of habit to check my surroundings, and I noticed the same older man just 2 steps behind me. Keeping in mind this is a long-ass escalator with no one else on it, so I found myself wondering why he was so close, and got a bit concerned as, if I remember right, he was in front of me when we got to the entrance. So, as a result, I was immediately on high alert, and once I reached the bottom, I noticed this platform had literally no one. The train must have either just left or not been due for a while. So I fast walked to the escalator to go up, and I saw the man also walking fast behind me. So in the end, I just ran up the escalator, and thank God my train arrived exactly the moment I reached the platform, and this platform had a lot of people. So I darted inside, looked back, and I saw the man also rushing to get into the train. So I immediately walked through the crowded train towards the other end and sat down beside a girl. I figured if the man was looking, he wouldn't be able to see me through the crowd. I had to get off the train after 3 stops to change to another train, and the whole way I just kept looking back to make sure that the man didn't follow me. I was so terrified. I told my boyfriend, and he was glad I noticed the man quickly. I told my friends as well, and they empathized, but also pointed out that the man might also be lost and just following me because I seemed to know where I was going. Well, that is possible. I just didn't want to take the chance. One time I was in uni going down the elevator with an old man in the car park to drive to school. Around 7 a.m, when the man came in, I immediately noticed that he didn't press any floor buttons. When I reached my floor to get out, I was relieved at first because he didn't seem to follow me. But once I was out of the elevator door, in the lobby, walking to my car, I looked back and I see the man walking towards me. I was immediately terrified and ran to my car, got in and locked the doors, and he just stood around the lobby entrance acting like he was just hanging out there. In all fairness, I have had many terrifying encounters like this since college, and recently I'm just so profoundly sad and angry that women have to go through this all the time. I came across a song called 12-Minute Walk by Bo Anderson, and I really just feel like crying at the last part where it's just a lot of girls checking with each other that they've reached home safely, because I do this with my friends. I also had my pocket angel that I kept in my bag for self-defense, and in all fairness, I hope I never have to use it. Either way, stay safe out there. For a little bit of background, I am a 24-year-old female who loves scary stories, horror movies, true crime, etc. It takes a lot to scare me, though I haven't actually experienced many terrifying, life-threatening events, fortunately. Now, onto the story. This was during the middle of August in North Texas, summer of 2023. So the nighttime temperatures were around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. My dad and one of my brothers, who's 11, drove an hour north into the countryside to go stargazing for my brother's Scout merit badge. There are some twisty gravel roads in the forest as you approach Black Creek Lake. We got to see a coyote, a deer, and 2 raccoons. We live in a city, so we don't often see such animals. We thought that would be our excitement for the night. We then finally made it to the recreational park grounds beside the lake. The layout is simple. If you're standing in the round parking lot, then the camping grounds are to the north and west. The lake is south and the path in and out is to the east of us. There are no official camping grounds east of the recreational area, which is important for later. We got there at about 10 p.m. and set up. We were able to successfully see some stars through my telescope as well as Saturn, which was quite exciting for us. Throughout this whole time, though, there were 2 parties, or what might have been one group, in the parking lot and surrounding nearby area. One party was kayaking and then later fishing from the boat ramp area west of us. To the north, in the lot, were 2 cars. From that direction, we were constantly hearing a loud, irritating voice of a woman who was obviously in a bad mood and didn't want to be there. She continuously cursed at someone, or no one in particular, and at one point was mad at someone for taking her keys and obstructing her from driving, which obviously made it sound like she was drunk or under some sort of influence. At one point in the night, around 11 p.m., we hear someone loudly, sporadically honk one of the car horns over and over in random patterns. Then we hear the obnoxious woman rudely tell someone to wake up over and over again, then proceed to hold down the horn for a few seconds at a time and continuing her assault on the horn and our ears. By this point, my family and I are just about ready to leave due to this loud commotion. I, personally, was fixing to go over there myself and tell her off, but I knew that probably wasn't the best idea. I definitely didn't want to put myself and my unborn baby into any danger. Then, for about 20 to 30 minutes, we were able to watch the stars in relative peace with little noise coming from the other 2 parties. Fortunately, none of these people were directly involved with what happened next, but it may have been the cause of it. Just before midnight, we packed up our stargazing stuff and got in the car. Now, the gravel path to exit. Hello everyone, Grim here, and tonight I'm here to help you get some sleep with some terrifying, creepy encounters. So, to do me a favor before I start you on this journey of sleep, please select that like and subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and once that task is completed, lay your head down on either your pillow or couch and let me help you get to sleep. My friend and I, both 13 at the time, took an evening stroll in a really dodgy part of town. Really idiotic, I know. This was pre-2015. It was January and pretty dark outside. No people were around except for 2 blocks down where there was a bus stop and a 7-Eleven. As we passed a newly built apartment complex, we started heading towards the bus stop. Before I understood what had happened, someone tripped over my leg, fell face down into the pavement, scratching himself and dropping something that rattled like plastic or metal on the asphalt. We both found ourselves staring at an adult man who started screaming obscenities, grasping the thing that fell out of his hands as he stood up and charged at us, telling us to get over to him. We immediately started running towards the apartment complex. The door was unlocked, thank God. And we rushed up the stairs and encountered a couple who were on their way out. We explained the situation to them and held back tears, but the man didn't follow us inside. The couple tried to calm us down and followed us outside. No man was anywhere to be seen. He just vanished. They were in a hurry and decided to leave us to get back home on our own. As we went towards the bus stop, really shaken up, we saw the same man enter the bus that was just about to leave. He looked really calm and put together, at least from the glance I got. His bus left and we got home some time after, not telling our parents about the situation because we were scared that they'd get mad that we decided to walk in that area of town alone. It's been 10 years since then, and we both discuss this regularly. And as we really had no idea what happened, the man seemingly appeared out of nowhere as we didn't hear him approach until he was about a few meters away. And there were no people around us to draw out the noise of him approaching. We don't know what he was holding in his hand, the thing he dropped. All we heard was the weird rattling sound and saw something silver looking. We wondered if it was a folding knife, but now the memory is so foggy and we really didn't get a good look at it. So we can't be sure as to what it was.